the direct response. Oh, in the agenda.
All set.
The draft agenda.
Good morning. We'll call to order the Thursday, March 2025 meeting of the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee. And joining me today are legislators Mike Lane, Greg Mezey, and Randy Brown. I haven't heard from Susan, but she may join us. Changes the agenda. We've got an item we'd like to add regarding the Air Services Board. Is that all right when we get down to the airport? Okay. Public comment. Have we got any this morning? None noted. Okay. Minutes from February 20th were circulated with the agenda. Moved by Randy, second by Mike. Any discussion on those? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Chair's report, just one item. I was able to get hold of all of the committee members Tuesday night. We have a conflict for the June meeting on June 19th. It's scheduled, which is a holiday. And I polled the committee, and it looks like the following Thursday, June 26th, works for everybody for the June meeting. So unless there's an objection, why don't we plan on doing that? County Administrator, have you got anything for us today, Corsa?
No, we have no report today. Thank you.
Well, we're moving right along here. Thanks.
Trying to get everybody out.
Good day for it. Highway Department, Nick's with us this morning. Got resolution and information item. I understand Jeff is on a little vacation.
Yes, he's down visiting the kids this week, down south.
Got anything you want to report, or to go straight to the resolution?
No, we were doing well, and then last weekend's wind has kind of set us back a little bit, so we're running tree crews all over the county trying to get that cleaned up, but no big deal. We'll be headed right back in the right direction here. Hope for spring. Today's the first day, right?
I guess
Hopefully.
it is. Okay, got a resolution, item 7A, budget adjustment for the Highway Department, use of unassigned D fund balance for plow truck upfits, ID number 13179. Moved by Greg, second by Randy. Anything you want to tell us on that?
No, it's just an important piece to keep our schedule moving forward with the trucks. With all the COVID stuff, it's thrown things into quite a loop on delivery of items. Currently, we actually have 4 of them on order, and the first one of the 4 is being put together right now, so we should have that in another 3 weeks, I guess. And this is kind of key to keep the schedule with the upfitter for the 2 trucks that are coming. They're scheduled in late May, early June to be delivered to the upfitter.
Any questions? Randy?
Yeah, Nick, nice to see you. So these trucks were ordered over a year ago, right?
Last late December, early January.
Okay. And are they in, do we pay for them, or we have to pay for them once they arrive? How does that work?
These 2 are a little bit different. Normally, we order a complete package. We order a truck with the upfit, and then we would pay for that when it's completed and delivered. This time, we ordered 2 cabin chassis to try to get ahead of that curve. So once these are delivered to the upfitter, we'll go inspect them, and then we pay for those trucks. Just the cabin chassis, which is in 24's budget. And then in 25, we expected to put these in, and the way things were, there was no funding for the equipment side, is why we had to go this direction.
Okay. So maybe it's a question for Norma. So the D fund, get my glasses off. What's the balance in that account left, do you know? Ballpark?
It was, when they're done, they will have 10%. We wanted to make sure that they had a healthy fund balance. I can't remember the exact number, but I want to say it's something a little over $1 million.
After this?
Yeah, and we did use some of that D fund balance, you may recall, when, during the budget process to cover some expenses for the highway program. And we're being very cautious about how much it gets used in that, because we do want to make sure we're maintaining at least a 10% balance in that, even though we do not have a target fund balance for that particular fund, that we're working with finance to make sure that that's maintained.
Thank you.
Further questions? Ready to vote? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Anything further for us?
That's all I've got.
Hey, did you have an opportunity to talk to Jeff? And question was raised, Dan Klein the other night wanted to know about the upcoming work and paving schedule for the year, and Jeff said that that'd be rolling out to us fairly soon. So.
Yes, we have the maps all made. We had them in the middle of the winter, our plans, and the way this winter has gone and the spring and the quick warm up and the frost coming out, we've had to make some adjustments to that. So we will have that at our next meeting, and it'll be pretty solid by that point. But we've had some roads kind of blow apart that weren't expected to. So we've got to adjust and minus a few off from the plan already. So we were going to bring it, but it's still kind of tentative. So we were thinking by the next one, that'll be a pretty solid list.
Sounds good. Greg?
Are you noticing, I know there's a couple of different methods in which we do roads around here, depending on, you know, if it's a complete repave or resurface. Are you noticing certain, you know, types of resurfacing the roads that are holding up better or not during the winter?
This year, it's been quite a variety.
Okay.
And some of our, we actually did a bunch of, last year we did like 7 miles of cold in place recycle.
Mm-hmm.
Where we had stone and oil, grind it up, they put it back down at cold temperatures, and then we added a chip seal over that. We were a little concerned in the middle of the winter because it acted like it was going to unravel and it was getting very rough. Once the frost came out, it all settled back down and it actually is pretty good. Some of our other like hot in place recycles, we're noticing some cracks that we generally don't see for 3 or 4 years came out in the first winter. Warren Road up by the airport. We have a company did some core bores on it to try to go down in and see, you know, how far, you know, is there a failure? Is it the pavement on top? Is it the recycle process, the oil, or is it just cracks from, you know, all the way through every layer of the asphalt? And those came back that they were full depth cracks. So with the frost this year, just everything, the nature of it just moved so much this year that there isn't any one that really looks any better than the other currently. So, you know, we do a lot of different processes and try to stay up with the times, and right now I don't know as one was better than the other for this winter. Anyway.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's good to hear that you're doing, you know, some root cause analysis and trying to figure out what the cause is. So that's good to hear. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're trying because you invest so much money and you're aiming for, you know, with our CHIPS reimbursements, it's 10 years. We truly aim for 15, and some things are actually 20 if we can keep up with the preventative maintenance. So you see that damage in, you know, over one winter, and you're like, wow, this won't take too many more of that. So we're going to be proactive and do some crack sealing on those roads to keep them sealed up and monitor things.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Mentioned to you earlier, Lee, I'm concerned about the bridge in Groton that we were scheduled to do this year on Cortlandt Street, and understand the costs are coming in higher, and I certainly would want to not see that put over a year if there's any way we could not have to do that. It's already been put over 3 or 4 years, as I recall, because of the complicated project and all of that. So I just wanted to comment that I hope that we can figure out how to make that bridge happen.
Well, I think we just received an email from Bridget and Norma on the way here about some additional or possible grant funding that we've got to go back through and read through some of the stipulations and see if this project meets it. And if it does, we're definitely going to move it forward. I think Bridget said next week is the deadline.
Well, that's
So we're going to go back, look through
comforting
that,
news.
and
I'm glad to hear that.
hopefully it'll turn into something, because that one's shovel ready, for sure.
In front of mind, right along,
More
Thank
to
you.
come on that, I guess.
Keep us posted. Yeah, I know you have a tight time frame on that one if you do get to move ahead on it with the trout stream and DEC regulations.
Yes, that one definitely has some tight permitting around it that you have to meet that schedule.
Anything further? Thanks for coming down.
Thank you.
Transportation, we have a couple of resolutions. Courtney?
Good morning, how
How
are
are
you?
you?
I just have one quick resolution today, which is the authorizing transfer of 5 40-foot hybrid electric Gillig buses from Albany CDTA, which is Capital District Transit Authority, to Tompkins County for free. We would get these 5 buses to Tompkins County because of our recipient-subrecipient agreement with the FTA, but we have a capital lease agreement with TCAT, so TCAT would be the one actually using these buses. These buses are from 2010, so technically they've met their 12-year useful life expectancy, which is why CDTA is getting rid of them, but they're in really good condition. Since coming to Tompkins County, they've all passed DOT inspection. And so we're very excited about getting these extra buses. And then in addition, TCAT has already ordered 8 new buses, I believe, and is ordering more as kind of a more permanent solution.
Thanks for that explanation. We'll, why don't we get it on the floor here?
Sorry.
That's fine. Acceptance of fleet transfer from Capital District Transportation Authority to Tompkins County for use by TCAT ID number 13153. Moved by Randy, second by Greg. Any questions regarding that? Mike?
So there's no cost to us to get these buses in?
There's no cost to us to get these buses. CDTA, as an authority, has a lot more money, and so once they can get more regularly scheduled buses, and so once buses have met their useful life expectancy, they're willing to give them to other people. And then because they've also met their life expectancy, there's $0 of federal interest on all of the buses.
These are diesel buses, right?
These are hybrid electric.
They're hybrid. Mm-hmm. And do we have the parts ability, or get the parts that we need to continue to maintain these?
Yes. So our Tompkins County hybrid electric buses are also from Gillig, the same manufacturer. So the answer is yes.
But the chassis are not the same as the ones that we had trouble with?
No, that's different. That's Proterra.
Okay.
Yeah, how many years are you hoping to get out of this, and how is it going to solve some of your new bus arrivals?
In terms of the exact answer to that question, I'm not sure, but I can tell you the buses that TCAT has already ordered should be here in 8 months from now. So those are all new buses.
And when so if these last maybe a year or two, do you have to dispose of them? What do you dispose of them? Do you like auction them off, or just sell them for parts, or how does that work?
So, any of the above, I guess. Sometimes they're auctioned off. Sometimes, like this, CDTA just gave them to us. If it's over, now I'm not going to get the numbers exactly correct. I think FTA just changed the numbers, but if you sell them, I believe for less than $10,000, you don't need to give FTA any of the share of that, and if it's over that, you need to give FTA 80% of that share.
Oh, interesting. Thank you.
Are we ready to vote? All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Nothing more for us today, then?
Nope.
Okay. Next, we have a resolution amendment of the Tompkins County budget to reflect the appropriation of 2025-2026 budgets for Ithaca Tompkins County Transportation Council and authorization to implement the amendment, ID number 13169. Is there a motion for that? Greg, second. Randy. And have we got anybody here to address that this morning? Fernando? Hi.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Great. Yes, this is a process that we have to go through every year, where we reconcile the county's budget with the Transportation Council's budget. The Transportation Council operates on a state fiscal year, because we receive our funding through the state, and so we have this where the county operates on a calendar fiscal year. So we have this first quarter that we always have to reconcile. So you'll see every year in March, April, you get this resolution kind of bringing our budgets in line.
Understood. Thanks, Fernando. Are any questions? No surprises here in the numbers.
No,
What you're expecting?
no, this is all approved funding, it's all federal funding, yeah.
If no questions, ready to vote? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Fernando.
Thank you, folks.
Moving along to the airport, Roxanne, I see, is online with us.
Morning.
Morning, Roxanne. What have you got for us today?
We do have some resolutions, but I can give you a quick couple of updates if you don't mind. Our Tompkins County Airport Day and Preparedness Expo. We're doing that again this year. The date is Saturday, September 13th. So there's multiple county departments that are involved with this, which has been great. We've added them in the past year or two, which really makes it a great community event for people to come to. The East Hill Flying Club Pancake Breakfast, the Runway 5K, there'll be scenic flights, and things we're continuing to add things as we go. But we wanted to keep everybody updated, and I'll continue to share information as I get that.
Would you say the date again, please?
Saturday, September 13th.
Thank you.
Yep, I believe the breakfast will kick off at 7 a.m. I think the race we're probably going to do at 8. We don't have that definite yet. And then just other events throughout the day. It's really attended by a lot of people, and it just gives the community a good place to come together and see, what the airport has to offer, which is a positive thing to get out to the community.
Roxanne, if you would like to send me just a small memo with the date and the times of that, I can make sure that it's received by all legislators.
Absolutely, I'll do that. Thanks, Jordan. Also, as we're working on the airport master plan, we're updating the one from 2012, I believe was the last one that we did. We were the first sustainable master plan. So we're doing another sustainable master plan. We have a public workshop scheduled for next week on Wednesday, March 26th from 5 to 7 p.m. in the airport terminal. And the public, it's just a chance for them to ask questions, share feedback, learn more, what Ithaca is looking forward for the next 10 years and beyond of what's happening at the airport, what things are changing, what we're doing, and just get information about the airport. So that's again next Wednesday, the 26th from 5 to 7 p.m. in the terminal.
Thanks, Roxanne. Any questions?
I have a question.
Randy's got one for you.
Hi, Roxanne. You transitioned from contractors to county employees at the airport this year. How's that going?
It's going really well. We have, had some turnover, with the airport maintenance workers, but we're back to full staff with that. We've really seen a difference with just having people on site, handling things. We've had instances, with having our 2 operations staff here, being fully staffed overnight as well has been a positive. We've had different things, that our airport, we also respond mutual aid to other functions as well. So it just really, it covers everything nicely. I'm definitely keeping track of the financials, and, of course, we've had a little harder winter last year than we, have had in a while, but things are really working out well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mike?
The United flights are supposed to start about now to Charlotte, right?
They're going to go to Dulles. It's March
Dulles,
29th.
I'm sorry, I said the wrong place.
That's all right. That's okay. Yep, next week.
And they start next week?
Yes. I haven't checked recently, but I've had their load factors, for the flights sold, seats sold, I believe they're up in the 80 percentile for flights being sold. So that's really great news. It's a great destination for Ithaca, so.
I did hear when the announcement came out that some folks were surprised to lose the Newark connection. How do folks get to Newark now?
Well, you can go through Dulles. Now, you can still get to the city on Delta through JFK. So that's the New York connection. So that will be our flights, will be Delta to JFK and United to Dulles.
Okay, so there'd be a plane change then if they came back.
And Dulles is Newark is also undergoing a runway rehab. They were doing a lot of closures coming up. So I think this is really a beneficial time as well with moving the flight at that time, so we didn't run that risk.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's 2 each and possibly a third to Dulles in the fall, right?
Correct.
Well, keep us posted on that.
Absolutely. And, and we're still working. We're always working, meeting with airlines, building relationships, and just trying to increase service.
Mike?
Yeah, I've been reading about the three major airlines and that they're having trouble financially, all of them, and that they're beginning to look at regions again. And I'm wondering whether they're going to be thinking about the smaller airports at this point.
Really hard to say. The airline business, I don't think I'll ever fully understand, and I've been here, as you know, since 1995. Things are always changing, different. We meet with one person at one airline, and I swear the next year they've moved to another airline. So it's just really keeping up with the trends, keeping up with, what's happening nationwide as well as for regional airports.
Southwest is going to start implementing a lot of charges that it never had before. And that's not making its passengers happy, like baggage charges and assigned seating and things like that. So I don't know whether Southwest is an opportunity to look at for us or not.
Yeah, we're looking at all of them, and we're fortunate to have two of the legacy carriers still operating out of Ithaca, I feel. They've really been a great partner with us. And, I'm pretty savvy at looking up ticket prices, and I try to help people, I've answered the phone and, and it's just really playing the game too of, maybe you have to leave, an early morning flight instead of an afternoon, so I think, trying to work with it. I've gotten some really great flights. We've got some great flights out of here for our staff when they've had to go for training. So I think, having the two legacy carriers here is crucial. Do we want, different service? Absolutely. But I still think, continuing to work with them and help them grow is also, one of the main goals that I have over the next 2 to 5 years is to just continue to build.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Roxanne. Why don't we move to the resolutions? The first one under A, authorizing a partnership agreement with GreenSpot to install 2 dual-port 200 kilowatt direct current fast charging electric vehicle charging stations at the Ithaca Tompkins International Airport, ID number 13181. Do I have a motion? Randy. Second by Greg. I see you've got some people with you here from GreenSpot.
Yeah, I can jump in here, and I don't know if Roxanne knew I was here. So This follows an effort by Haley Delisle in the Planning Department. She put out an RFP on behalf of the county and municipalities in Tompkins County looking for EV charging solutions. Basically put out a broad call to see what was out there, what companies were interested in working with municipalities in Tompkins County and what they had to offer. And after reviewing that RFP, the county looked at the offer from GreenSpot and found it pretty enticing. And so we invited Joe to come in and kind of give a little bit of a presentation to you all so that you can understand a little bit more about this. And then the resolution itself would be authorizing the county to enter into an agreement with GreenSpot to provide 2 charging stations at the airport and receive a share of the revenue. And so, Joe, I'll kick it over to you if you want to give that presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Sure. Thank you.
I'll try to make this quick. I mean, we typically I can just kind of talk through these things, but I wanted to kind of give you some visuals as well because I think that kind of plays an important role here. But overall, GreenSpot is based out of Jersey City. We've been around for 10 years investing in and installing EV charging infrastructure, and we have a nationwide network now in over 25 states in the U.S. So we continue to expand, but our highest density of our network is in and around the New Jersey area because that's just our home base. So we do a lot of work in New York, of course, Johnson City. We're partnered also with Ulster County in New York as well. We've done smaller municipalities like Norwich as an example. We have some infrastructure in Buffalo. Of course, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and the surrounding states like Massachusetts and Connecticut. So, what we do is we provide publicly accessible EV charging infrastructure, and our mission is really to increase EV adoption. So like I said, we've been doing this for 10 years, but we're backed by a parent company, which is a larger property developer and management company, owned by Yal Fuster. Yal Fuster is the CEO. And this is the core team, part of a larger corporate staff that actually implements the EV charging and manages the network on a daily basis. Trusted by many, we have over 35 municipal clients right now, including larger cities like Columbus, Ohio, Boston, Massachusetts, and Cincinnati. We have the capital city in New Jersey, which is Trenton. Like I mentioned, Ulster County. And we'd like to add your county to the list, and we'll also be working with the city of Ithaca as well. Pictured here actually is what one of the fast chargers would look like. So it's a standalone unit, it's a power cabinet. The coloring will be as seen here, and 2 vehicles can charge at the same time. They're high speed. If you look kind of around the county, there are not many fast chargers. There's some kind of to the southwest, just outside of the city of Ithaca. But we'd like to add more because we think there's definitely a need, and it's a way for people to have publicly accessible charging, and a way for them to think about potentially getting an EV. It'll also support, rideshare, taxis, that sort of thing. A lot of those are going electric now because they're incentivized to do so. So having these at the airport will just give them another accessible area that they can use to recharge. Pictured here also is what would sit next to that cabinet to provide the 4 parking spots. So this is essentially just a dispenser. The equipment can be used very easily by anyone. There's a payment terminal, like a tap to pay as an example, but regular users can download our app if they want a better user experience and be able to track their usage and that sort of thing. So we have like a wide range of equipment. Most likely the infrastructure in the county will not stop at the airport. We'll, work with the county and look for other opportunities to provide infrastructure that they need, whether that's for public use or for fleet use, as an example. So as time goes on, we'll continue to expand the network and build it out as there's a need. Like I mentioned, the user experience, there's multiple ways for people to use the stations, but they accept all forms of different types of payments that people are used to. And like I said, people can download the app. That way they can see our larger network. So if they're traveling and that sort of thing, then if they use it in Tompkins County, they can also use it elsewhere. There's no membership or anything like that to use the stations. You simply could sign up in, a few minutes, and you're good to go. We do offer support 24/7, so anyone that has an issue, my team is always on call, and we have people answering the phones when people have questions. So that's available 24/7, and then we also provide support via email. So we are vertically integrated, so we do a lot of things on our own. The only thing we don't do is physical construction and the engineering, so those are subcontracted. For the construction, we'll most likely be working with local licensed electricians to do that work. And we have many up in that area that have done projects with us in the past. And they have a lot of experience in EV infrastructure, so we'll be working with those groups. I'm just kind of going through this quickly because I understand there may be some, questions I'd want to get to that. But, it all starts with kind of where we are now, which is we did a lot of site evaluation to pick the airport location. The airport also assisted with picking the particular location on the property for this initial infrastructure. So once this contract is signed, then Green Spot takes it from there. We do all of the utility coordination, and we'll start with a new service application with NYSEG. And then, they'll assign us one of their engineers. We'll find out where there is power. They'll eventually drop a pole or a transformer on the property via an easement, and we'll take care of all of that process via engineering plans. Engineering plans will be submitted to the county for review. Once those are approved, then we'll go ahead and apply for permitting, get all the permits that we need, and then we'll start the actual construction. Construction is a very short period of time in comparison to the overall, length of time it takes to do one of these projects. To get a fast charger installed, it takes somewhere between 6 to 12 months from the time the contract is executed. So, we'll be trying to expedite that as much as possible, but a lot of the work is dictated by the utility company, so we end up on their schedule. Once the final connection's made by the utility company and they're powered up, we do a commissioning and test the equipment, and then it's open up to the public. It's go live, and then we can do some sort of like ribbon cutting or any type of event that the county would like to hold there. So that's essentially it. I mean, the location on the airport property, I believe, is in short-term parking, which will give a lot of people access to the equipment. And I believe that's also open 24/7, so that anytime people need it, they can access that lot and use those charging stations. So I'd like to open it up to any questions that you have.
We got questions for Joe. Mike.
Thank you for the presentation. I don't own an electric vehicle yet, but I wanted to understand how this works. You said folks have to sign up. Is that correct, to use this?
So it depends how you're going to use it. If the signing up is via a mobile application, so you would just download the Green Spot mobile application from your app store on your phone, you could register an account. And then once you register an account, that'll give you a lot of information while you're using the stations. Like it'll show you all of your receipts and everything. You can also sign up for we call it a key tag or an RFID tag. That will come in the mail, and then that will allow, again, easier access to the stations without using the mobile app. The mobile app is really meant for people that may be using our network on a wider basis or on a regular basis. So, if you don't have a charger at home and you're going to be using that fast charger on a regular basis, it'll be a good experience to download the app and register. But the stations will have payment terminals on them, similar to like when you're at the store and you tap your credit card or you swipe your credit card. They'll have payment terminals already attached to them so that you don't need the mobile app at all. So as an example, if you're a taxi driver and you're just there, occasionally dropping people off and you want to recharge, then you just plug in, you tap your credit card, and the charging will start in a few seconds.
And how does the user know how much the charge is going to be if they go in and plug in?
Our pricing is displayed on various different, applications as well as the screen itself. So it'll tell you what it's priced per kilowatt hour. That's like almost like a gallon, it's like equivalent to a gallon of gasoline. So EV drivers are used to paying like a rate per kilowatt hour. and that'll be displayed in multiple locations, including like Google Maps, Apple Maps, our mobile application. There's other charging like websites and tools that are free to use that people access depending on what they're used to doing. So all the pricing will be there. So there's multiple avenues to get the pricing. And if they have any questions, they could always call us.
So by the time they're done, there's a figure on the screen that tells them how much they're being charged?
Yes.
Okay. And gasoline pumps, we inspect regularly to make sure folks are getting the proper amount of gas that shows on the meter. Are your terminals inspected in any way? Have they been? And to make sure that the customer knows that they're getting that amount of kilowatt hours that your meter says?
Yeah, I mean, the way that the equipment functions is it's attached to an electric meter that's directly from the utility company. So that'll be our account. We pay for the electricity directly. So that'll tell us exactly how much kilowatt hour or energy that, that setup used over a period of time. Secondly, there's sub-meters built into the charging stations themselves. So they sub-meter the electricity that they're outputting. Again, those are highly accurate, pieces of equipment, and that tells us how much each individual port or, charging station uses, again, over a period of time. So, there's no way to tell, okay, we outputted 100. Did the car actually receive it? Because there's a really complex connection point between the car is really controlling the energy. It's not the charging station. So the car tells the station when to start, when to stop. It also tells it how much power to output, right? So the car is actually the charge controller, and of course we don't have any control over people's cars, right? So we know how much energy is being outputted. We monitor the equipment. We know whether or not there's something wrong with it on a regular basis. In terms of regular inspections, these pieces of equipment will probably be, at least visually inspected and touched at least once a month.
Okay, I appreciate that explanation, but I think the answer is no. There really is no way to yet to inspect the output for a customer independently. For example, our weights and measures groups.
So Mike,
so it's the electricity is flowing, and the ions are going into the car. We know how much is outputted. We can tell how much the car accepted. But then, we can't audit the car afterwards to tell, okay, this is how much, energy was added to the car, because there's no difference in weight or anything like that, such as gasoline.
So I'll say there are electric vehicles that when they have been charged, they will show you how much energy they've accepted. And so you'd be able to verify how much energy was put into your vehicle to your receipt showing how much was dispensed. So that would be another way of auditing. It would be an individual auditing it in that case. But no, there's nothing like a weight and measures, as far as I know, that goes and inspects it and checks to see. It might be an interesting thing to bring up with New York State at some point. But I think because of the way it's being done, the batteries themselves, I think it would be difficult to spoof that you're putting in 20 kilowatt hours in the battery, the car is only accepting 18. Just the mechanics, the physics around it, I don't know actually works out in that way.
Okay, I hear you. Thank you.
You see legislature.
And the drivers, if they notice anything, weird, say it, says that they purchased 1,000 kilowatts and their car only takes 100. There's some sort of issue there, typically related to software. They're going to contact us right away, and we'll typically in that case, we'd give them a refund if that was the amount, and then we'd investigate what happened. Sometimes those things do pop up. We're dealing with software and hardware. Sometimes strange things happen, but we have all the tools available to investigate it.
Thanks. I see legislator Annie Corman's on with us and has her hand raised. Diane?
Hey, Lee. Yeah, I just wanted to say two things. Well, first off, to Mike's question about that, I have two electric vehicles and have had one since 2018, and the ability to see ahead of time, once you have these apps, I can look ahead and see where's the, how much it's going to cost before I get there. So it's actually, you have more information than you would have sometimes going to just stopping at a random gas station. I know ahead and I can plan my stops if I'm on a trip of where it's less expensive per kilowatt hour. I can also look at, which is often more of a priority, of where's charging faster. So I'm not having to wait as long. And my car during the fueling process, I guess you'd call it, tells me how many kilowatts are coming in at any particular second, and then I have a record on my in my car of that, and it keeps the record. And I also have an app depending on where I'm charging up. So I have a permanent record of how much it cost and how much the total was. I wanted to ask Joe or Terry, so this is available to municipalities. Have we heard any interest? So in my the district that I cover, town of Ulysses, town of Enfield, just wondering if we've had any interest to have faster chargers out in the rural areas such as those.
So I think as part of the RFP process, there were different municipalities within the county that had potential locations for charging. My understanding is that once we reach this agreement with the county, hopefully some of those municipalities can kind of piggyback off of the agreement. It's similar to what the city of Ithaca is doing as an example, and then we can explore different types of infrastructure based on those municipal needs and depending on what the public wants.
Yeah, because I've heard a lot about people wanting faster chargers in more places. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll say Haley's had ongoing conversations with the municipalities that were part of the RFP to tell them where we were at in the process. And we have heard interest from, not necessarily in your district, Annie, but over in Dryden. The village of Dryden has been interested in having a fast charger installed there. So I think, as Joe said, if the county moves forward with this, I think a lot of them will see that as a good opportunity to jump on board as well. So.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Greg and Randy both had questions.
Yeah, a couple of questions. How long is the easement for?
So it's an initial term of 10 years, and then it has 2 5-year mutual extensions.
Okay, and is there an out for any reason, or if there's on the county's part?
Yeah, there's termination for cause if Green Spot stops performing for whatever reason. On our own initiative, not due to ongoing maintenance, which of course would be communicated very clearly with the county if anything's happening. And then if we go out of business, of course, there's an out for the county as well.
And is our 5% fixed over the 10-year easement and the 2 5-year extensions, or does it increase over time at all?
It's fixed right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my question is, what's the modeled projection of our 5% revenue over a yearly basis?
Ultimately, it depends on how much it's used. It's a very complicated question to answer. It could generate hundreds of dollars a year. It could generate thousands of dollars a year. It really all depends on how much it's used.
I'm going to go out on a limb, though, and say that there's no way that you guys are making these types of investments if you don't know what your 95% is. So I think it would be relatively easy to understand what our 5% is based on your projections.
Yeah, we had some figures.
Yes and no, but it's the reason why we do a percentage of the revenue is because we are taking a risk, right? We do install these locations where we think it's the most, it's the best investment to make. However, it's possible for us to make bad investments, as an example, right? So there's ways for us to, of course, minimize that because we're vertically integrated and there's lots of economies of scale to what we're doing. But a lot of things can hurt us, like the current government administration, the cost of electricity being outside of our control, So there's things that we may have to adjust to over time.
So I'll also say there were some initial projections in Green Spot's RFP response. What they initially proposed is slightly different from what we're going with. I will also say that what they were offering was above what we saw other competitors offering, which is part of the reason why we went with this agreement. So, but I'll concur with Joe that it's really difficult without understanding kind of how often these things are going to be used, having right now almost no fast charging solutions, I think there's a pretty good chance that these will be heavily utilized. That being said, if we have 10 more stations go in, suddenly that utilization is going to go down as well. So this is, it's a little bit of a gamble on their part.
Joe, how many of these stations do you have across the country similar to this?
We have 700.
Okay. That's a healthy data set. I'd like at some point an answer before this hits maybe the full legislature, what our expected revenue projections might be on that 5%, because I'm sure that it's modeled in some way. It can be a range. It's not to, but again, that's the value of the easement, essentially, is at 5%. Because we're allowing somebody else to come in. Obviously, we're offering a benefit to the community, but we're offering a benefit to the community at a cost, and we're occupying county land. And in exchange for county land, we're getting 5% of the revenue for this. So I'd like to know what the value of that easement is. So if we can have smarter minds than I look and try to figure out what that might be, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I can tell you right now that, based on how other similar locations perform, we look at it in terms of like utilization or the amount of hours that they're used per day per parking spot. And, somewhere between the range of, we would expect to see somewhere between the range of 1 to 3 hours of usage or utilization here per day, which would equate to somewhere between $2,000 and $7,000 for the county per year. So it's not going to be a massive moneymaker. Obviously, the more it's used, the more that revenue share is going to increase, of course, over time. But in the initial year of operation, I would expect the county to see somewhere around $2,000.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Joe. Randy?
Regarding weights and measures, couldn't we just take one of our electric cars and go up there and charge it and see how it matched up? So I'm curious about where they'd be located and the accessibility of them, because the more accessible they are, then more people use them. But also, is there a cost for us of digging wires? You're going to have to put power in, and is it going to disrupt anything? And any thoughts on that?
So for the first part, the location piece, if you're familiar with the airport where the solar array is in the short-term parking, it'll be to the southeast of that. So if you're facing the airport just to the kind of the right, it'll be taking up 4 of the spots in that location. And then in terms of the cost, the cost of the installation, the construction, it's all borne by Green Spot.
Any further questions? Thanks, Terry. Thanks, Joe. Are we ready to vote? All in favor? Are there any opposed? And when we get to the full legislature, we'll see if we can have that additional information and bring legislator Mezey along.
I'm all on board with electric charging stations. I just want to make sure that we fully understand the economics and that it's fully presented up front in the conversation.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Greg. Mike, you said you don't have one yet, electric vehicle.
That's correct.
But when you get that Tesla, come over and give me a ride in it, would you?
It probably won't be a Tesla.
Thank you. Resolution B, award a contract, Air Service Development Consultant, Ithaca Tompkins International Airport, ID 13172. Roxanne, do you have that one?
I do. So this is part of our, annual operating budget. We did an RFP to get a consultant on board. We as part of the strategic and business plan we're working on as well, and just having a professional company to assist us. This was something that the legislature brought forward to a couple of years ago, with what's happening in the market, what's happening in the trend. It's just part of our budget, and we just wanted to do a multi-year contract instead of trying to do 1 year at a time. We did an RFP, we got 4 responses, I think it's all in there. We got to the top 2, we had Air Service Board members, I sent it out to them for them to review, and the one that was selected was Intervistas.
Okay, do we have a motion for this? Moved by Randy, second by Greg. Questions for Roxanne?
Yeah, I got a question.
Randy.
Yeah, Roxanne, sorry to put you on the spot here. This is my 4th year on the legislature, and the airport's been struggling for revenue, obviously, and getting flights out. And is the goal of this particular contract to try to increase the number of people flying out of there? Is that the ultimate goal of this?
That's part of it. I mean, we've had a air service development consultant in the past as well, but this one's a company that has more people. They'll have software. They'll help, really help Chris Stephanie, our marketing person, and Josh and I, meeting with the airlines. They have great connections. They have, part of their proposal was other airports that have increased service. So it's really just looking at, that's really the bottom goal for the air service development is air service out of Ithaca, increasing it. How do we increasing it? Having somebody else to help us with negotiations that speak the airline talk.
One of the things I hear from a friend of mine who has a lot of traveling salespeople, and they go west a lot, and they just refuse to fly east. So they go to Elmira or Syracuse to go to Detroit, because that's a great airport, and they can get about anywhere from there. So I just wanted to share that with you. So.
Working on that, that's one of the goals that we have here at the airport. One of my goals is a westbound connection. Yep. So duly noted. Thanks, Randy, for sharing that.
Further questions? Norma.
I just wanted to go back to the green spot conversation for a second and I know he's not here anymore, but one thing that I wanted to just check with Roxanne and Chris, if we were to have those stations, we have those, oftentimes there's several spots that are vacant in that area. If we were to have those, we could really market that to encourage folks to charge their car and come have lunch kind of thing, right? So we would have to make sure that there's some really good marketing to make that a very useful space and use of that property, not just getting our 5 cents or whatever it is that's more of a service, but to utilize that as a real marketing piece to get folks to the airport and take advantage of the other services that are there.
Absolutely.
Further questions? All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks. And thanks for that additional, Norma. Resolution under C, award of contracts, media by Ithaca Tompkins International Airport, ID number 13176. Is there a motion? Randy, second. Greg. Anything for us on this?
So this is really, and I have Chris Stephanie on too if you have any additional questions, but this really is just to get the marketing stuff that he's taking care of, that he's handling out to the public. So it's really just the 3, the radio, the print, and the digital, having contracts with a company that does that.
Any questions? Shall we vote?
Yeah.
Mike?
Roxanne, this is actually paying for the advertising or someone to place it for us?
It's for the advertising, so like the ads. So if we can't just, so Chris does the ads, he creates the ads, but this is for them to, put them in the market. So we have to, we don't have the ability to just for free put them in, say the print ads. So you have to have a contract, and then they'll give you so many spots. And I'll let Chris expand on that if I'm not saying it correct.
No, that summed it up.
I just understand that we changed the model 3 or 4 years ago, and you hired the employee. With these contracts we're talking about today, are we still?
No, these are just media buys. So for instance, I have a marketing budget to purchase advertising out there in the market, and that's what these contracts do. It purchases the spots in the paper, on the radio, and digitally.
Okay. I just got trying to get an idea, are we less money or more money than the model we had before?
Less.
Even with
Less.
these additional contracts?
Yeah, so these contracts we would have to have no matter what. So the company we had before did these contracts for us as well. And then we paid a percentage on top of that to the company to set that up. So this is something done internally, so there's not a percentage on top of it, but this is something that you have to do to get the media buys, to put the advertising out there.
I'll say with me doing these buys, our placements are probably increased. The number of impressions and the number of placements go up because we're not taking, the marketing company is not taking a percentage off the top.
Okay, thanks.
Greg?
Roxanne, this is also a 2-year agreement with these marketing, or vendors essentially. And that's one of the reasons why we're seeing the resolution, because these were typically done on an annual basis. And
Correct.
This gives us a little bit more runway, no pun intended, with these companies to be able to have more of an ongoing, multi-year relationship with our marketing strategy.
Correct, and we can, and it does help, it builds that relationship, and you are not then having to do RFPs or going out and changing midstream, and I think we have the option to renew 3 additional years too. So and again, we have the out, if things aren't working, if we're not great, and we're working with our air service consultant, we can out, but also I think just building that relationship is a great plan.
And this saves staff time, not having to go out and solicit RFPs, going through that once with a longer buy period, essentially.
Absolutely. Chris is really happy with this.
Not have to write RFPs every year.
Further questions? Shall we vote? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Anything further, Roxanne?
I think I've covered it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got an item here that I spoke with Jordan about. Air Services Board has had some difficulties getting a quorum, and we do have a advisory board appointment potential here, but it's coming to the committee first rather than from the group, and I'll let Greg address that if he'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, so at the Air Service Board, because of some change in membership and some fluctuation, we've struggled to get quorum, and when we struggle to have quorum, we can't bring people forward, we can't pass minutes, we can't do those sort of things. So it's a chicken and an egg. How do we get people on to get quorum, et cetera, et cetera. So of those present at the last Air Service Board meeting, this individual was passed on unanimously, but it wasn't an official vote because there wasn't a quorum. So the conversation sort of took place is because it needs legislative approval, if Roxanne and the members of the Air Service Board that were present could sort of put it to the committee to evaluate and then put it to the legislature, that wasn't out of bounds with any of our policies or practices around advisory board appointments. So that's why you're seeing this one in an effort to build back up that board. And I think the individual that we're reviewing is a veteran, has experience as working with fixed base operations, air traffic control, has had a 27+ year career in aviation or aviation adjacent. So a strong individual to the board, and we didn't want to miss out on that person's expertise and involvement moving forward because of a procedural thing that could be solved if we come in this sort of a non-traditional way to the legislature to ask for an advisory board applicant's approval to move forward in the process.
Any objections from the committee? If not,
I'd like to move Patrick Moylan, at-large member, term expires December 31, 2026, to the Air Services Board.
is there a second? Randy, discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks for bringing that.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay, guess that covers airport downtown facilities. We have an item here for discussion on the deconstruction definition and process. Is Rel?
Rel, come on up.
Talk with us on that? And Terry. Okay, Kat McCarthy is with us as well and may have a presentation for us, I'm told.
Yes. Or information.
I do have a presentation. I'd be happy to share it when you're ready.
Oh,
Yes.
is that good? Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kat. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Can folks see my screen, the presentation screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for including me in today's meeting. We were asked to just provide some baseline information on deconstruction as kind of a starting point for this conversation. The Department of Recycling Materials Management certainly supports the idea of building materials reuse and are happy to help support in any way we can. We see a lot of value in building materials reuse and diversion. Certainly it aligns with our local solid waste management plan. It offers historic preservation value, among many other benefits. So we're happy to support in ways that we can, including sharing information like this presentation, or, as things move through a process, helping kind of document kind of what challenges might come up, what might have occurred as well. So if that's something that's useful to kind of spotlight information, that's something we'd be happy to do as well. I wanted to start with just some basic information about construction and demolition debris. This information comes from the state's solid waste management plan, and I thought it was a good starting point just to be clear on kind of what's included when we say construction and demolition debris, material coming from construction materials coming from building construction, demolition, road construction, as well as construction and excavation. It is the largest component of the total waste stream in New York State, so generated at about 46%. And the baseline year for the New York State's plan was 2018. So you'll see that about 64% of C&D debris was recycled in New York State in that year. And a good chunk of that is for beneficial use for that. And you can see kind of the different types of materials that are making that up, a large majority being concrete, asphalt, and brick, but also including a variety of other materials. Ahead of this meeting, I believe 2 definitions and some additional information was shared by a representative from CROWD. CROWD is a group of experts. I believe you're somewhat familiar with them, but they've been experts that have been working tirelessly to move building materials reuse and the circular economy forward. I've included an image of their glossary on here from their website. That's a resource that's available. And I think it's just helpful to kind of have that baseline understanding with deconstruction as being the careful, systematic dismantling of part or whole of a building structure in order to recover materials, as compared to demolition, where we're dismantling, razing, destroying, or wrecking structures. With deconstruction, CROWD has provided a number of resources and has been involved in the development of a white paper on building materials reuse in New York State. A definition from that white paper I think is helpful because it goes further in kind of outlining that deconstruction materials and architectural components are recovered for reuse, resale, and recycling. So really thinking about that beneficial use and the highest and best value element of that. I also wanted to put out there the spectrum of deconstruction because I think it's helpful to really kind of see it's not black and white, it's not necessarily one versus the other, but kind of a whole spectrum on which things can occur. This table was adapted from a resource from the Center for Ecotechnology. And you can see that kind of at the top here, we're looking at adaptive reuse, where can we reuse the building as it stands, maybe retrofit it, but continue to use it where it is. I know that's been a conversation that's already been had. Waste management plans, I'll talk about on the next slide, but kind of thinking ahead, planning for how materials are being used. Pre-demo cleanouts, looking at, furniture, materials inside a building, recovering that, finding reuse for those items. And then getting into some of the more active elements like soft stripping. We're pulling high value materials that are easy to reuse, lighting, cabinetry, architectural items. Getting into partial deconstruction, which gets a little bit more hands-on with materials, whether that's doors, trim, windows being culled and removed from the building for reuse. Full deconstruction, again, kind of going to more of the salvaging materials with value and outlets. And I think the deconstruction pathways here is really just kind of outlining that there's a lot of different steps along that and a lot of different ways to seek and support building materials reuse. I mentioned the waste management plan. I think it's just helpful to understand that this is a tool that's available to really kind of plan ahead and understand, what materials might be of value that we want to pull out of a building. And then once identifying those, kind of how does that work? What is the flow of materials? Planning ahead so that key stakeholders are engaged when they need to be. And then also kind of that on the ground planning so that as the project moves forward and its staff might be brought in, there's training or a briefing to understand what material is being removed from the building, making sure that everyone's clear about how that's happening, where is it getting staged, how is it getting to its end destination and transportation. A question that often comes up is, who does this work? What services are available out there? This is a resource that Crowd has produced on behalf of the Susan Christofferson Center for Community Planning. I think it's a great resource to see kind of who's in the area. It is organized by region, so you can look up Region 7, which is where we're located, or the surrounding areas to see what service providers exist. And they have kind of a variety of different service providers for that. So that's another really useful tool in kind of understanding the process. I mentioned the white paper earlier and just wanted to highlight that again, as it is a good resource to be aware of. It was created last year with a specific focus on New York State and building materials, and really offers information about current practices in the state. It looks at the potential and future opportunities to further building materials reuse, and also has some state level policy and practice recommendations that I know folks at our state level, our representative Anna Kellis has been interested in and pursuing this as well. So it's helpful, I think, just to be aware that this is a conversation that's being had locally, but also kind of at the broader level. And I don't want to gloss over the challenges as well that kind of come up with deconstruction. Cost is one that you often hear. Demolition, landfilling, and new materials acquisition can also often be artificially lower than some of these other costs. Now, when we look at homeowners and deconstruction, there's often tax benefits and the sale of materials, which can make it more competitive and possibly even cheaper, depending on kind of the infrastructure and the systems. When we start thinking about it at a municipal level, some of those components may shift. So I think it's important to understand that a little bit deeper. Certainly I had mentioned the service providers, contractors. We have folks who do this work, but I think there's a broader need just in the region for more of that. And then infrastructure and markets. Where is the material being staged? Are there locations to kind of site the material while we're waiting for it to be sold or resent to new locations? So just kind of good to be aware of those elements. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or hand it over for further discussion.
Randy?
Yes, Kat, thanks for working with Arel and Leo and Terry. You were probably involved in this too. And it's good information to understand. In this deconstruction process, and I think we've decided that's the direction we're going, would that be, Arel, would that be something that Holt would actually do the tracking of that?
Yes. We would be working with them as part of the deconstruction. They're going to be doing design initially for abatement of all the hazardous building materials in the building, but also for how to approach the deconstruction of it. And so we've, Kat, Leo, and I met last week and talked about this process and the presentation. So I think the challenges are finding those outlets. What we would prefer to do in our conversations is to identify early in the design process all the components, materials in the buildings, and then try to find outlets for them early. Because what we don't want is to remove components and store them somewhere. I mean, we don't have room on site to do that. And I know that some of the local, like Reuse and others, have spoken before at committees saying that that's one of the challenges is storage space. And so what we would rather do is either find markets quickly or recycle them, or even I know that others have expressed, I mean, public parties to, take some of these components off our hands. And so I think that's one of the challenges, and it's really a balance of cost and time, because to deconstruct completely is going to take a lot more time. And so that's why, as part of our schedule, we've said we want to start deconstruction as soon as possible, because this process is going to take longer. The Baker building took 4 months. I see this as taking longer than that, maybe 6 months. And so I think it's good that we're having this conversation this early in the process. But yes, Holt would be involved with other groups, recycling and materials management as well in this entire process.
So it's my understanding, is it a class from Cornell, or maybe some professor at Cornell has come in and analyzed the buildings for the materials that are in them, or kind of?
Yes, we have not received kind of the deliverable yet, but yes, they have walked through. I know that they surveyed the 308, the professional building, 300, which is the former KeyBank building. They have not, but I know that there was a separate architectural class from Cornell that did dimensioning, and I think that information was shared with this other Cornell group. And so what we anticipate is getting something very soon from them that really itemizes all the materials and components of the buildings, and so that we can start this process.
The KeyBank building has a lot of glass. Can glass be recycled, or is that something that's, maybe it could, but it's expensive transporting, maybe, that kind of stuff?
That's probably a better question for Kat.
When we talk about window glass, that's a little different than the glass that you would put in your curbside bin. So it's something that we would have to look into to see if there's outlets for the recycling element of it. But it's a little bit different than what you would think of with your traditional curbside mix.
I don't know currently, but I know years ago there was quite a market for salvage glass, they called it. Like especially you'd have a storefront with a broken window, and they'd come in and they'd take the larger pieces and cut them down for other uses. And I don't know whether that's the case, but I would think that that would be worth exploring, because those are huge pieces of glass, and it could be taken out. I just wanted to say, I really thought that was a great presentation you just gave us, Kat, and I would like to have a copy of it. It's very full of information, condensed, so that we can understand it. Thank you for that.
Kat, if you would like to provide that presentation to me, I will send it to all legislators.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thanks, Kat. Any further questions on this topic? We appreciate that, and getting ahead of the curve on this, Arel.
Thank you, Kat.
Yeah, it was great, Kat. Thank you.
Randy, Arel, have you got any updates for us on downtown facilities aside from the presentation today?
We've been meeting for the past several weeks to prepare the document that we're going to be sending into the State Historic Preservation Office, which we're looking at doing tomorrow. Met again yesterday. We have, let's see how many pages, over 200 pages of documentation, but the primary document is 60 pages long, and then we have 2 appendices. We've worked closely with planning, Katie and Megan on this, and myself, of course, has attended a few meetings as well. So we think we have a good document application to submit to SHPO. And then we are planning a site visit on April 10th with 2 representatives from SHPO. What we will do is walk through the three buildings, 300, former Key Bank, the professional building 308, and building C. And then we will meet here to discuss with them the application and see if they have any questions. Our hope is that by either the end of April or early May that we will get a response back from SHPO. And we wanted to meet here to show SHPO that we have historic buildings that we have been good stewards of, and we thought this would be a good building to showcase when we have our meeting. And we also felt that it was important that they walk through the buildings themselves. I think you get a different impression when you actually walk through them. There's a lot of literature you can read on the history of the 3 buildings, but when you walk through them, you see that your impression is a little different once you walk through them. It was from the consultant that Holt hired. She read all the documents first. When she walked through the buildings, in her mind, she did agree that those buildings, had seen their time, and that she could support deconstructing those buildings to build a new center of government.
Thanks. Arel, any questions?
Yes.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that alongside that process, we're also looking at alternative office spaces for department that would need to move. So we continue to explore all options available, and so we are ready for both the department in the building C, as well as any other department that need to shift a bit based on this process.
Randy?
I'd just like to remind again that we have over 7,000 square feet empty in the mental health building on Green Street, and that's an opportunity. It's in good shape, and there's even desk and stuff in there, I think.
Yes.
So
It is an alternative. It is a part of our planning. Yes.
Yes.
right. Okay. And I do want one other question. So to be able to provide, to look for outlets for these materials from deconstruction, we need to know what they are. And then you're going to need to get that stuff out there to people and I know that actually some municipalities may be interested in some of these things. So the quicker we can do that, and I understand that Cornell isn't finished some of those things, but that would be kind of in advance of getting the information of what's available for people out there, so that when we don't have to store it.
Yeah. So just to add to that is, I think that's one of the key reasons why we have HALT coordinating all those services. So if you look at the SHPO process, they got experts involved in our SHPO application. So when we get to the deconstruction, they will get those kind of specialist providers, just like Katie demonstrated, to also be involved in that deconstruction process. So HALT is helping us coordinate all those aspects of the project as we move forward.
Great. Thank you.
Mike?
I did have a question. The decorative iron on the front of the 308, there was that dust up when the doors were taken. What became of the iron on the doors? At one point it was talked about being donated back. Has it happened?
I mean, those are gone. One of the owners, the attorneys, removed the doors without our knowledge initially, and then we realized that there was a clause in the sale agreement that was added at the last minute that gave him rights to that. So those, I think he either recycled or donated it, and the proceeds went to a local charity, as far as we know. The rest of the grading that attorney gave rights to that for all the other components of 308 to Historic Ithaca. So that they actually have rights to any of that. And so in the deconstruction and salvaging, I think they'll determine initially what things that they were interested in. And then whatever else, then we can either reuse, recycle, in whatever way we see fit. I know that Christina O'Malley, that was here at the last meeting, spoke to me, and I think you were here, Randy, afterwards. She sent an email just to kind of confirm that they have rights to that, but she did indicate that if there was interest in, the project as far as the design of a new building, in the grading, that that could be discussed, that they could allow us to use that and repurpose it in the building in some form or fashion.
This was Historic Ithaca that you said?
Yes.
I don't know what they would do with it, but interesting.
Right.
But you think that the grate that was on the doors has been destroyed, or we don't know?
We don't know.
I don't think it's been destroyed. I think it's being stored somewhere. And their hope is to get the rest of the grading, right? They feel they have the rights to that. I think we've...
Right.
And so it's just the grading, not anything else in the building, right?
Well, no, they have rights to anything else in the building.
Anyone?
They've already taken, I'm talking Historic Ithaca has already taken really loose furniture and things from the building. This is, last year. And so at this point, actually after the meeting, Christina O'Malley indicated that once we do the abatement of the building, that they may be taking other things. So since the era of the building is time when asbestos was used, especially in drywall compounds and taping, we've told them not to touch anything that's affixed to walls. So yes, they've indicated that they are intending to take additional components and items from the building, and we can't stop it. I mean, legally, from that document that Ed Kopko gave up rights to them. We would have to wait.
It's water over the dam, but none of this came up when we were at the legislator level approving the purchase of that building.
I think it'd be good for our county attorney to give an opinion on exactly where we are with that. And then we'll go from there.
Thank you for that update. I didn't know.
Mike, it's funny you brought that up because I was thinking the same thing as I was sitting here about the grates on the front. Is it their Historic Ithaca's expense to remove those?
Yes.
And do they provide us with insurance certificates, et cetera, like we would expect from all vendors and
Yes, and
suppliers?
so that's one thing that we had brought up back when the attorney was starting to remove it. We said, you can't just do that. I mean, at the time, the building was still occupied. We were the landlords. We had tenants in there. It was winter time. The doors were removed. We had to heat the space. And we thought that was totally incorrect. We had no idea that this clause was added. The copies of the sale agreement did not have that clause. That was added at the last minute, and it was only initialed by the seller, not by the buyer. But
Isn't it handwritten in the margin?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And so in any case, what we had indicated to the individual at the time, if he had notified us that they were planning to do that, we could have cordoned off the sidewalk. We could have taken precautions to put, replacement doors there to seal it off. But we had said, if you plan to take the rest of the grading, you're going to have to get a lift. You're going to have to follow a process. It has to be safe, and it has to be planned. So yes, in talking with Historic Ithaca, they are aware of that they would have to work with us to seal off the sidewalk, to get a lift, make sure they're insured, all of that, so that nobody gets injured in the process. So.
Norma, did you have a question? Oh. You looked like you were contemplating something.
If the county, yeah, it was kind of, if the county is willing to incorporate those components into its new structure, it seems that we have then preserved that, and it's still part of the ownership of the, I'm just confused about why we would give that up if the county is willing. It's not like we're going to throw it away. If we decide we want to utilize those components within the building and still preserve that, don't we?
But we don't have rights to it at this point. I mean, that's what the former county attorney said. So, I mean, if it didn't belong, if it was belonged to us, yes, we wouldn't be talking. But yes, this is interesting story, how this all transpired, but.
Right, anything further? I'm picturing the use of that drive-through from the bank and, you know, some kind of a carryover. If not, any further items of business? Shall we stand adjourned?
Remember, this afternoon is our budget.